Kismet Literary Magazine. Kismet Magazine. Is that the official name? And you are 3 of the staff. Could you introduce yourselves?
I'm Matthew Woods. I'm the co-founder and editor-in-chief of the Kismet Magazine. The Kismet Magazine is right. There's now another one that cropped up after we started that also is the same. I know. It's fine. We're not that salty about it.
I'm Bri. I am the other co-founder, and I'm one of the developmental editors.
Let's get back to that. Definitely want to hear more about developmental editing.
Yeah, no, that's a definite selling point that we should talk about more. So I'm Sarah Johnson-LaBarbera, and I am the managing editor and oracle of the magazine.
And oracle.
Yes.
Impressive. Okay, we also need to come back to that.
Self-assigned title.
I should also say, this is Nice Work, and I'm Alex Chambers. Welcome to Nice Work. Tell me about the origin story.
Okay. This has become my bit. Like when we go to an event, I'm the person that throw at the person to say like, what is Kismet? We were sitting at around a campfire at a friend's house in the hills and hollers of Bloomington, Indiana. Uh-huh. And I'd recently...
Actually, we were doing bad archery.
Well, yeah, we were also shooting a bow and arrow that they happened to have.
Okay.
We were not doing very good at it.
No. And I'd recently been on like a deep dive. And whenever I have some sort of crazy thing that I've been thinking through, I usually turn to Bri to talk through it. And so my deep dive had been, I was looking through literary awards for genre fiction, specifically sci-fi, fantasy, and horror, and looking at what magazines were winning. And I was compiling this list of magazines and looking through what was the landscape currently, because I'd really gotten back into the genre as a whole. But looking through all these different publications, I was like, there's no publication that currently exists that has a framing that is specifically for fiction for better worlds. Very like Adrian Moore Brown, like emergent strategy of like imagining the worlds we want to live in sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so Bri called me. Bri, as often we do, said, we could do that. And I said, yeah, okay, sure, let's do it. And then we're here now.
So it was sort of this speculative fiction that then became a reality?
Yes.
Look like, Sarah, you need to add something to this.
So I was not involved in the origins of it. And I don't think Brian and I knew each other at that point. I had adopted Matt a while ago. And at the time, I was on volunteer staff at Literary Mama, which is a digital publication that publishes a wide variety of literary writing from the perspective and with a view on motherhood. And Matt would come to me with questions about or I'd be like, oh, well, we do it this way. This is how we handle submissions. And I love speculative fiction. And then finally I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to hire myself as your managing editor because nothing is going to happen. Well, it would happen eventually. But I love building a system. I love ordering people around. So I was like, let's do this. So
your goal is to create a space for visionary speculative fiction?
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of twofold, too. So, I mean, there's the first level where we were wanting this world where we wanted, speculative fiction that, says something. But then whenever we were talking in our,
what do you mean by says something?
We all love fiction that sits somewhere between having a conversation about the world as we know it and what's wrong with it and how we grapple with that. And that can also be through the lens of not just science fiction, which I think is often what people think of, but also fantasy does a really great job of this. Things like The Sinless Sins, Tower of Babel series by Josiah Bancroft is a scathing critique of capitalism through 4 novels, where it's like a Dante's Rings of Hell sort of thing. So says something as in it's engaging with our political landscape and begging questions.
Cool.
The second level was not only that, but it seems like a lot of the writing industry has become so bureaucratic and capital-based that we also, whenever we were first having our second meeting after that bonfire, we're we want a magazine that's sort of a community as well, that is also its own sort of reckoning with this industry. And we want to have discourse and friends and a community through a magazine, which is not something I still don't think exists. And I'm not as tooting our own horn, but I think so frequently magazines become niches to sell a certain type of fiction.
True.
Rather than a place to build out some sort of community.
And I'll say, I think we definitely have a leaning towards pieces that have this kernel of hope. Not that we haven't accepted sort of more dystopian or nihilistic pieces, but definitely the ones that sort of have this hopeful outlook, even in the midst of, misery or darkness, really definitely speak to us. And I think also the community aspect. And those are things that I'm also always trying to push us to tie back to the Midwestern roots of, like, how does that get defined in what we're doing with speculative fiction when we want to accept pieces from everywhere, and it's not cordoned off, in a way, but it's still somehow Midwestern.
Say more about that. So you're based here in Bloomington. You're trying to both have a sort of a Midwestern, say, sensibility, but you are accepting pieces from wherever.
Whenever we were first dreaming of this, I had this vision. I remember the first time I ever found a zine was in the Wells Library. I was a student, like a sophomore, on 7th or 8th floor. I had walked past a table and somebody left a zine there, and I picked it up. I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. What is this? And so I wanted, like we had talked about, we wanted to be able to go like throw zines around Bloomington or around Indiana, or mail zines to our friends and have them leave them places. So there's a certain like tactile, physical quality to community that we wanted. We're sending them to our friends. We're placing them in locations that are special to us here in Bloomington. But also we didn't want to like limit, like the science fiction, fantasy, horror community is not in Bloomington, or not just in Bloomington. But yeah, so we wanted like this Midwest sensibility too, of sort of like a potluck, I think maybe is a good way to put it, of like bringing as many people together with all their different like odd dishes in whatever space that ends up being. It could be here in Bloomington for an event. It could be in Discord. It could be when we go to like a conference in Florida or wherever. Like we're going to try and bring people together to have a conversation or play board games or, yeah.
So, Bri, as a developmental editor, let's start with you just describing what developmental editing is.
Sure. The way I look at it is we get a lot of pieces that we see a lot of heart in, or we really like the idea, but something about the technical aspect of the writing is kind of holding the rest of it back from being as good as it could be. And I think this actually started because we got a submission from a writer who in their cover letter said, this is the first story that I've submitted for publication. And the descriptions were just so vivid and it was eerie. And I sort of gravitate toward the more horror. So when we're slushing together, like if it's a horror piece that's good, like I will be like, yes, we should take this.
Slushing for people in the non-literary mag world is just reading through submissions.
Yeah, and deciding, we kind of do it all together. We'll get together for a couple hours and we'll each take a bunch and say, we want this. We want it with edits, developmental editing, candidate, and then I look through those and see which ones that I would want to take on. If we're unsure, there's like needs another set of eyes. So, when we were slushing it, I was just like, this is so eerie and so good, but the ending just felt a little anticlimactic. It didn't seem like it tied together what the rest of the story was doing. And so my background is I'm currently a PhD candidate in English literature, and my dissertation is on science fiction and fantasy. So
you know a thing or two.
I know some things, for sure. Someday I'll know a whole lot of things, but yeah. And my background, I did a little bit of like creative writing workshop in undergrad. So I really felt drawn to this piece and drawn to authors who are interested in what our mission is, but who are maybe nervous about sending out their publications for the first time. And I think there is a kind of lack of access to good feedback if you're not in an MFA or if you're not part of a writing circle. So I felt for this writer who was like, this is my first piece, and I don't know much about them, but I was imagining like, well, maybe they don't have someone to give them feedback. And I really like the piece. So I think this would be a little more intensive to give to our regular editors. And I also have pretty strong opinions about what I would want or what I think would make the piece a little bit more cohesive. So I think that was the first piece I took on. And that's when we started talking about the role of a developmental editor.
The idea of offering developmental editing, I think, comes from like a place of like service for us. Like, hey, we have this ability, we have this perspective, and it may not be the best perspective, but it's one that we want to offer if you want it.
All right. Thanks, you guys. This is great. Fascinating. You can read Kismet at thekismetmagazine.com. For Nice Work, I'm Alex Chambers.